Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the Pro PlayGames webcam regionals that happened this past weekend. It was 8 rounds of Swiss to this top 16 that we see here today, and it's the BT13 meta, so it's the first event for North America for this meta as well. So real quick before we get started, first thanks to PPG for running the event and also giving out the deck list and for streaming it if you guys want to see it. It is currently on their Twitch, and you can also watch it probably re-uploaded to their YouTube probably sometime this week. Also, I do have my own tournament coming up tomorrow as of this video dropping, so it's going to be a box tournament for BT13. It's going to be webcam, it's going to be tomorrow, and we did hit 16 players already, so it will have the upgraded prizing. So make sure to check it out if you guys want to. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's linked in the description for that as well as just this event page with all the deck lists, and you guys know the rest. So jumping on into this breakdown, though, we do have 3 Hunters, 3 Royal Knights, 3 Shine Grey, 2 Bloomlord, a Belphemon, which did end up winning the event, a Black War Grey X, a Blue Flare, an Ulforce, and an Alphamon. So a pretty good variety for this one. And I also kind of noticed that, and I'm not sure if it's just people playing a little bit slower because it's a new meta, but a whole lot of ties. So we did have an 8-0, we had a 7-0-1, Riley getting second with Hunters, and then a good amount of 6-1-1s as well to get into this top 16. So interesting to see that. And normally when we get to a new format, I know a lot of people are just kind of trying to find it out what the cards do. Honestly, there's a lot of reading in a lot of these new cards too. There's a lot of kind of interesting archetypes, specifically like Hunters and Belphemon at times, and Shine Grey. Even there's a lot of stuff to kind of go, even though it's a little bit more aggressive. So we're going to go over the top placing list with each archetype, starting off with our first place. So this is George's first place, Belphemon. And this is a really interesting kind of deck in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people thought it wasn't super good. I've been seeing the power of it, especially for like the Gaia Force gaming event that I helped stream for like the week of. So this it did win that event, but the idea of how this deck works is really unique and just kind of like the win condition. So the short answer for how this works is that you try to fill up your trash for with your Gizmons. These just kind of give you effects, and just the fact that they kind of rotate through each other means that you kind of always have something to delete for some of your other effects, which is nice. And we kind of go into this sleep mode. So there's the Belphemon. This pretty much you go into it, you can't really be affected. You can also negate an attack once per turn by discarding 2 cards from your hand, and then you go into your rage mode, which lets you kind of pretty much pop all level 5s or lower on the board, as well as get essentially 4 checks between 2 attacks if you get your sequencing correctly. You also can pop a level 6 when you go into if you have this tamer out as well, and so you kind of just do a lot of pressure. You can go back into sleep mode afterwards and then kind of do it again. So that's kind of the idea for it. It's kind of it's just a combo deck in a lot of ways, but very, very strong, especially because this goes up to 17k. And the only issue that I've found with this is sometimes Shine Grey is a little bit weird because it can't pop the tamers, even though they're Digimon for the turn. The fact that they don't have levels means you can't really interact with them as much, but especially with like Gift of Darkness as well, since this only deletes based on levels. So if the cards don't have levels, there's not. But at the same time, this is kind of a deck you have to respect the power for. It does go very strong. I do also like the add of the Nidhoggmon, which I haven't seen before, which you do get to, if you discard, get like the memory back, which can help you with your plays. And I think that's strong there. So this is the list. Congratulations to George for their first place finish there. Next up, we do have Hunters for second place. Don't have a lot to say about this, except for just Hunters is still good. You'll see this is strictly still just a BT 12 deck, no ads. One of course won me a couple more copies of Omni Shout as well, but just a really well-oiled machine. I'm not sure what to say. I know like this is one of the stronger decks that were in BT12, and so because of that, I think if we're entering a new format, some people are playing probably like suboptimal BT13 lists and just trying to get used to it. So when we enter new metas, like sometimes a strong deck from the old meta can still do very well just because you are kind of more familiar for it. So not much more to say from that. Congratulations to Riley for the finish. And next up, we do have our third place. So this is Peter with Royal Knights, and we did have a couple of Royal Knights get into this top 16 with 3 of them. Everyone's kind of have their own kind of special brew for the deck, since it is kind of a self-made deck. It's kind of like not like cookie cutter, but in the way that you have a lot of pieces that you have to play, make it yourself and then kind of go from there. So some specific text and stuff that I noticed noticed are first is that Kongu is here, which is interesting to prevent like attacks. Also, being able to like stop attacks for the turn is really strong. Works out with Alphamon, which is really the only we have Alpha and Ganku and Craniumon. So being able to use any of these is good. Craniumon, I don't see this one as often, but being able to use this is just like a blocker that can't be deleted by opponent's effects. So it can be DP minus, but just having that protection there on a blocker is nice. We also have like the Jesmon GX package for this, so you normally can't digivolve into stuff, but if you use your Omnimon effect, it's when digivolving to delete the card in your raising, which is your egg, you're able to then digivolve again once the egg is off. So you can use that, which means you can go in Jesmon GX, which means you can get some additional effects, which is really strong on pretty much any of your Royal Knights. So which means you can trigger some when digivolving effects, which I think is cool. We also run the option card here, being able to essentially just be a restand for 3. You do need a Royal Knight in play. You can read it without requirements, so it's very easy to play this card in this deck, and just kind of everything else. So you do have some choices for some Sistermon. So we have the Seal and Blanc, which is great. The Omekamon, and then just your ratios of the ones. 3 Jesmon is kind of a lot for this one. I don't see this as much at this height. Also, only 1 Gallantmon, and something else to kind of recognize about this archetype too is that it is moderately expensive compared to a lot of other Digimon decks. So just get it, especially since there's just so many. Like you got 2 secret rares from this set that you kind of have to run. So because of that kind of impacts I think some people playing it at the same time, but I think we're kind of getting to a point where people who want to play it are really kind of dropping the cash for it. So this is the list here. Congratulations to Peter for their 3rd place finish. Next up, we have Ryan with their Shine Gray, and I know a lot of people went into this meta thinking this is the boogeyman, and I think it is a very strong deck, and I'm not denying it, but it's definitely not as like super oppressive as we've seen other tier 1 decks, which I think is good in a lot of ways. This is a combo deck, but because of that, there are just times where you do whiff, and I've seen it a lot of the time. Especially, 8 Tamers is usually enough, but sometimes you're like, man, I wish I could run 10 of these Marcuses, which you can play the red one, but this deck I think has obviously a lot of interaction of like combos, being able to do combos with your Marcuses, like switching them, suspending them, using their effects from suspending, going into the burst mode for free to get refresh your Marcuses, and just everything else. There's just a lot of strength in it. So some option cards are literally just options. So Shining Blast and Sunrise Buster, which sometimes you play, some people just do option list. Yellow memory boost instead of red memory boost. So specifically because this can find the ruin mode and everything else except for Algo X antibody, which I think it looks like you're a little bit more specific on finding your higher end than I guess your lower end, and just kind of everything else from there. So not much more to say. I think this deck is strong, and congratulations to Ryan for their finish there. Next up, we have Shaun with Black War Gray X, and this deck is still kicking a lot of the time. I don't think anyone's denying that. Even like it was a EX4 tournament, but it did do very well at the in-person event last weekend too. So there's not much for me to say about this one at this time. It's kind of understood what we go for. We just have a lot of top end in our Black War Gray X, our Black War Gray, and our Gaiomon. Very strong there for what we're doing. Just having some Tamer Destruction too is good when we do have like a lot of Tamer based decks like Shine in the meta, and Hunters obviously as well, which means Hades Force is still just very obnoxious to deal with. OmniX and Omnimon for some finishers, and just, I don't know, very well-rounded deck. I think a lot of you guys know it does have a lot of ways to deal with a lot of other decks, especially with like the Metal Greymon and just kind of everything else you have. So here's the list. Congratulations to Shaun for their 5th place there. And next up we have Blue Flare, which is I feel like I've said this like 3 times in this video, but we know how this deck looks, right? It's an EX4 deck. There's nothing like BT13, and BT13 is just like a weird set in general where we got a lot of support for these new decks, but like not as much like generic support, which is fine for a set, but it does mean like if you have some decks that were really good in EX4, chances are they're still very good in this format. So, being able to stun a lot of decks is good. You can do some kind of neat plays where, some decks do have just a bad matchup into Blue Flare just because of how they work and how they have to have at least 2 stacks out most of the time. So, but then there's also like Hunters that can kind of bypass it as well. So it's just kind of just a weird deck for sometimes polarizing matchups, but the amount of pressure it can do, especially since you're playing the Greymon to get that security attack +1 if you need it, is great. You do have to be careful. You can't be with the Metal Greymon, then also the Zeke and just kind of everything else. So this is just, I would say, very standard list, which is nothing bad with that. Just a very well performed deck. So congratulations to Hansen for their 6th place there. And then we have Ryan with Bloomlord. And Bloomlord's, I think, is in a pretty okay spot. It pretty much got a good amount of support on the low end, specifically with the Alphamon being able to be like another on-play searcher, which is great since sometimes you do play a bunch of rookies for free off your effects to get more bodies on the board. So being able to play something and then being able to find a tamer, which we're not playing. Yeah, we are playing the Yoshino, and then also the a vegetation plant fairy, which is great, which is pretty much most of our deck. Then also the Sunflowmon from BT13 does put in a lot of work as well, being able to suspend it to Digivolve and to pretty much like Digizorb, give something Digizorb, which is great, but also when the inheritive, you give something, reduce the Digi cost by 1 as well, so I think that's good. Yoshino is just like another 4-tamer, a little bit different than Mimi. I know Mimi is such a good card and a lot of people want to stick with it, but being able to say, if you have when one of your Digimon digivolves into a vegetation plant or fairy, you can suspend it to gain 1. So you can make a lot of free digivolves, which is great when like Bloomlord gains memory back, and when Hydra also gains memory back for suspending something, which it does. So and Quartz does too. It's not a fairy, plant, or vegetation, so you don't get any reduction for it outright from there, but you have other ways, and we still have that hidden potential discovered too. So very, very good deck. I think it does have like Belphemon can just clear the board though if you're not careful, so that's kind of upsetting, but very scary. And if you see it go off, sometimes they just vomit out a board. It's very, very good at that. So congratulations to Ryan for 9th place. And then next up we have Austin with their 12th place Ulforce, and Ulforce did technically get a new top end card, but it is kind of better just with the Royal Knights archetype and not kind of like the more established ones. But and I think this is good, and we have seen like Mirage Galgamon do some work in the in Tax July regionals, which happened last week. So I know a lot of people are kind of bouncing between which one's better, either Ulforce or the Mirage, and I think. I don't know. I think Ulforce is probably more consistent at finding its pieces, and since it needs kind of like less pieces, and it's a little bit better at finding them. But I think Mirage still kind of has like the upper edge for that. And obviously, this deck still just like specifically this list. If you get hit by Quartz, there's like nothing you can do about it, right? Like there's no actual removal for Quartz in this version, so you do have to be careful for that. They're all running the Leomon package with Jerry, which is a decision that kind of people bounce back and forth with, but I think the deck is still good. So this is Austin's list. Congratulations for their finish there. And to wrap it on up, we have our last place, or not last place, but our last list we're going over today. It's Luke's 13th place Alphamon, and really, Alphamon was in a really good spot. It was just missing its level 5. So being able to have another one of these, because Durogray from BT7 is at 1 copy. So having 4 of these Durograys named Durogray is really everything the deck needed to be able to, like, for people to look at it again. And because otherwise you look at, there's not much more support that was actually added. You do have like some more level 4s, which are nice. I don't think they were needed, but they were nice for this one. But being able to run Dex ShineGreymon again and have like actual advantage you can get with Cool Boy is great. And then also another Alphamon, which is a 3-1 split between this one and the BT91. But this Alphamon is pretty strong for what it does too. By placing 1 Digimon card with X antibody trait or Royal Knight trait from your trash underneath this, all of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 10 or higher can attack players until the end of your opponent's turn. And then also, so this could also like stop like Belphemon from attacking, but also all turns once per turn, when this Digimon would leave the battle area by an effect by returning 1 Digimon card with X antibody trait or Royal Knight trait from this Digimon's evolution card to the bottom of the deck, you can prevent it from leaving play. So being able to get that protection is great, and being able to get that stun for something like the OTK deck. So I know like Grandis doesn't exist anymore, but that would prevent Grandis from hitting you, and some other decks that I think are viable, which even like the Royal Knight archetype. So if you play this Alphamon and they're planning to do the Omni play to go in for game, this will prevent that, which is really strong too. So that is the deck there, though. Congratulations to Luke for their finish. They're also running the Big Punch and the Sunrise, so that can be a big big punch to end it. But congratulations to Luke there. And that's going to be it for this video. Again, if you want any of these deck lists, they are on my website, as well as the PPG website, which is linked on my website. So, there's that. If you guys want to keep getting some BT13 tournament results and everything else, make sure to follow me here on YouTube and to bookmark this page as well, or just the website as well. But that's going to be it. Also, make sure to sign up for my event. Should be really fun. We'll be tomorrow. We'll be live streaming on my Twitch as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.